you, ma'am. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Heisnam Devi. I'm research scholar in the Department of Humanities and Basic Science at Indian Institute of Information Technology, Manipur. And on behalf of my co-author, I will be presenting a paper in the topic entitled Lexical Gap in Meeteilon and Manipupri. And these are the outlines of my paper, where I'm going to discuss about the language, where introduction to Manipuri, and then features of the language, where I will discussing about basic features of the languages, these grammatical features, and then I will be discussing about introduction to lexical gap, what lexical gap is, and the various type of lexical gaps. And next, I will be discussing about lexical gaps and translation, how they are interrelated, and the issues related to lexical gaps in translation. And then I will be discussing about lexical gaps and morphological analysis in Manipuri. Due to this lexical gap, morphological analysis in Manipuri suffers a setback. And then I will be concluding my papers by discussing the summary of the whole work. So let's begin today's presentation with the introduction of the language. So my paper intends to study lexical gaps in translations and morphological analysis in Meeteilon. Manipuri, it has been known by various names such as Meeteilon or Meeteiron, or it can be also known as Meeteilon or Meeteiron, or in some other word, it is also known as Meitei. What happened is that we have La and Ra is alternatively used in our language, but not in the initial position of the word. In the middle or in the final position, La and Ra, they are in free variation. Regarding the classification of the language, G.A. Gerson, in his Linguistic Survey of India, Volume 3, he placed Manipuri in the Kuki-Chin groups of Tibeto-Burma language family. And R.A. Sapper in the year 1955 and 66 and 1974 placed Manipuri in the Meitei branch of Kuki section. And Paul K. Benedict in the year 1972 classified Manipuri as being included under the Kuki Naga of Kuki section. And Robbins Burling in the year 1998, he places Manipuri separately under the eastern area of Tibetan languages. And some of the pioneers who have contributed in the study of the language could be worth mentioning. They are the works of P.C. Thaudam, his remedial grammars in the year 1980, Bhatt and Ningomba, their grammars, Manipuri grammar, published in the year 1997, Sobnas Meitei grammar in the year 1997, Sir Yaswantar Manipuri grammar in the year 2000, and so on. And regarding the features of the languages, the Meeteilon or Manipuri language, it is a tonal languages. We have two types of tone in our language. One is high tone and another is low tone. Most of the low tone is unmarked in our language. Only high tone is marked. For example, un is skin, and if we use high tone in un, it means for eyes. It has SOV word order. Or it can be said that most of the Tibeto-Burma languages, they have this SOV word order, where S is for subject, O is for object, and V is for verb. In some case, we find only OV, because subject is almost understood in our language. And we have this presence of velar nasal nga in the initial position of the word. For example, nga, it means fish. And it has a postposition instead of prepositions, and verbs are not inflected for aspect, number, or persons. Most of the Tibeto-Burma languages, we have only aspect. No, we don't have a tense in our language, since it is not reflected in the verb. And we don't have grammatical gender, because it has only natural gender to indicate only the male or female of the language. And we have in the coda position only seven indigenous phonemes, that is pa, ta, ka, la, ma, na, and nga in the coda position only. Nga, it's not reflected in the slide. I don't know why, but in the example it is shown. Okay, in the continuation, regarding the study of the morphology of the language, Manipuri has extensive morphology and extensive suffixes. So suffixes play the most important role in the word formation process. As stated by Chelia in his Meitei grammar in the year 1997, she mentioned that the word or the stem of Manipuri word can have suffixes ranging from 1 to 10. For example, in the example, I have shown that Pusin Handing Manja Badagini Ko. It can be either seen from the left to right manner, where the leftmost word, that is pu, it is the bound root. It means to carry, and other remaining suffixes, these are all verbal suffixes, and some are nominal suffixes. Sin is the diatic suffixes, and han is the causative suffixes, ning is the mood suffixes, man is the excessive suffixes, ja is for reflexive suffixes, ba is for nominalizer, da is for locative, gi is the nominal suffix which indicate possessive, ni indicates copula, and ko indicates these endearment suffixes. So we have facing problems in the identification of roots and this morphological analysis in the Manipuri language. And it has only two basic word forms, noun and verbs. Noun can be either free roots or bound roots, but for the case of verbs, all the verbs in Manipuri are in bound natures. So what about the other word forms? The other word form, that is adjective, adverbs, noun, negatives, and even derived nouns, they are derived from verbs by means of affixation. Some affixes such as prefix or suffixes, they are used in order to derive adjective, adverbs, noun, etc. from the verbs. So word formation in Manipuri is prominently based on affixation, but there are also other prominent word formation process. It can be mentioning word, that is compounding and reduplication, but affixations cover the vast majority part. And all the verbs in Manipuri, they are all bound in nature, so it requires an affixes to make a complete word. So the identification of the root of the word along with the suitable prefixes and the suffixes which are added to e or added to the stem is an essential in the study of the language. So next I begin what lexical gap is. So lexical gaps, or in other words, it can be called as lexical hole or lacuna. It is nothing but the non-existing word due to various reasons. Trucks in the year 1993, he defined the terms as the absence of a hypothetical word which would seem fit naturally into the pattern exhibited by the existing word. And Lehrer in the year 1974 states that lexical gap is multiply ambiguous in the sense that it has been applied to all sort of instances where a word in one way or another is missing. So one should not be confused regarding the systematic gap or the accidental gap. What happens in systematic gap is that it doesn't follow the formation of word formation process of any language. Say, for example, like PFLK, it cannot be a word because it violates the rules of word formation process, because there is no vowels in this particular word. But in the case of accidental gap, what happened is that the word may be a potential word, but it is not present in the lexicon. That's why it is called a lexical gap. And I just want to continue with the following point, that environment also play an active role in the determination of the language. For example, Eskimos, for coinage of the 50 Eskimo words for the snow, only for the word snow in the Antarctic, they have more than 50 words for snow. That's, for example, Kanuk is for snowflake, Kanek for frost, and I don't know how to pronounce this next word, and so on. Even for the Arabic only, they have more than 100 words for camel, since they have different names according to the different purposes. For example, Hail, a pregnant camel; Sarma, 10 to 30 camels; Hin, 100 camels; Layla, 30 camels, and so on. So next point is the gaps of lexical gaps. Some of the phones is not shown in the systems. I'm sorry, but I will be explaining this. The first type of lexical gap is the phonological gap. This happens at the level of the phonology. This is also just like similar to the systematic gap that I have already mentioned. And every language has its own phonotactic constraints. For example, like Japanese, they don't have a la sound in their language, so la could be replaced by the ra sound. So if they have to pronounce the word violin, it will be pronounced as violin, since they don't have la sound in their language. In case of Manipuri also, we have this CVC pattern, that is consonant vowel consonant pattern, but the word, it should be thub. Thub, it is not a valid word, although it is accepted as because it follows the CVC pattern. So here is the example of the phonological gap. Next is the morphological or derivational gaps. Morphological gap is also known as derivational gaps. It comes out, or it occurs when the potential words are not used. For example, we know that adjective in English are derived by the suffixations of al, and nouns, they are derived by the suffixation of dion, such as, for example, proposal and arrival. But we don't have word like derival or arrivation, since a derival or arrivation, even though they are potential word, they are blocked, and it is therefore a morphological gap. Even though they are potential word, they are not present in the lexicon of English. So in the case of Manipuri, we have this verbal noun. We know that verbal noun, they are formed by the suffixation of nominalizer pa and ba to the verbal roots. And adjective, they are derived by the prefixing of attributive prefix schwa to the verbal noun, as shown in the table 1. So further, it means be good. So for example, if we want to derive verbal noun from this word, we add this suffix pa ba, and the adjective of this word becomes a pa ba. So na means sick, but if we want to change into verbal noun, it becomes naba. And if we want to change into adjective, it becomes anaba. But in the case of faja, that is beautiful, it can be derived into verbal noun by the suffixation of ba, that is pajaba, but we cannot make apajaba. We cannot put the attributed prefix swa to that word, because it is only applicable to the monosyllabic word. But in the case of disyllabic or more than disyllabic words, addition or prefixation of attributed prefix, so it is not allowed. So here it becomes the morphological gap, even though by the prefixations of attributed swa to the verbal noun, we cannot derive adjective in the case of disyllabic word. And in the case of semantic gap, most of the lexical gaps, they are come within the core of semantic fields. In another case, we can say like that. And Lyon, in the year 1977, he described this lexical semantic gap as the absence of lexeme at a particular place in the structure of a semantic field. He again maintains that lexical gaps are attributed to unlexicalized concept or object across languages. For example, there are words referring to dead humans and dead animals. Dead humans are called corpse and dead animals are called carcass, but there is no word for dead plants. Corner, in the year 1983, he introduced the semantic field of temperature in English, as consists of 4 terms such as cool, cold, warm, and hot. According to the context, some turn out to be synonyms and some turn out to be antonyms. In the next slide. In the case of Manipuri, we have also, even if the concept is same, we have different word form according to the different items used. For example, the word where, we have different word forms. if we want to wear an ornament like necklace or bangles, then we use siba. And if we want to use if we meant for clothing, or then we use setpa or litpa. But if in the case of shoes, in the sense that it can be any kinds of shoes, we use uppa or tomba. And for wearing makeups, we use
Heisnam, Devi, you have 5 minutes left.
Okay, ma'am. So these are the example of semantic gaps in English. So, and again, married woman in Manipuri we call is mo, but there is no term for married man in our language. So semantic gaps, they are heavily found in kinship terms, color terms, and other cultural aspects of the language. And next we have the lexical gaps and translation. What Bentivoglio and Pianta in the year 2009, they summarized 4 points regarding the idiosyncrasies found in the languages. There are syntactic divergences that two languages, they have different syntactic patterns. Say, for example, like English has SVO pattern, but Manipuri has SOV pattern, and English is prepositional and Manipuri is postpositional. And lexicalization differences, it happens when both the source language and the target language lexicalize the same concept with different kinds of lexical units. It is nothing but the borrowing a word from another language. Say, for example, like we have a word like pay in a Manipuri, but it is translated into English as a kind of umbrella. But it has many cultural aspects hidden within the use of pay. And regarding divergences in connotations, we use like word Maira Paibi in Manipuri, which is in most of the dictionary, it is translated as woman carrying torch. But it determines the strengths of the Manipuri women and how they fight for justice against the government, and other meaning are also embedded in this word. And denotation differences, that is the source language would only partially overlap the denotation of the translation equivalent word. And what are the issues that we are facing regarding the lexical gaps in the translation? We have these unadapted loan words. So Manipuri itself, we have highly influenced by Bengali, Hindi, Sanskrit, and English. And nowadays, due to the impact of globalizations and advanced technologies, so many words so many words are entering into our vocabulary. So it's not possible to translate each and every word that we are using in our day-to-day conversations. And regarding the translations of idioms, we have regarding the idioms, there won't be any one-to-one mapping. One-to-one mapping is not possible, not only for Manipur language, but for every language. So, for example, like Haikru Manada Yomba, it means a little amount, so it cannot be translated as one-to-word translation. Otherwise, we cannot get the exact meaning of the word. And Chasi maru hundoksi matong, it means inability to make decisions. Lamgi sanna machi sangba heli, other cows have longer horn, and so on. I'm sorry that some of the fonts they are not showing. And morphological or derivational gapping translations. Many derived words in English pose semantic challenges, resulting morphological gap to the translators who are attempting to translate from English to Manipuri or any other languages. The gap results from the morphological or derivational process of word formation of the source or the target language. Many English words have been translated into Manipuri, only maintaining the concept, such as wakat mifam. Wakat itself is a compound noun formed by the combinations of a noun wa and the verb cut.
You have 1 minute left. Please conclude your presentation.
Okay, I'm sorry, ma'am. So in the conclusion, I have mentioned that lexical gaps occur due to the lack of vocabulary within the one or the same language. It is heavily found when comparing two or more languages. And in these papers, various types of lexical gaps in Manipuris are discussed with example, and every language has its own unique or cultural identity which are translated into any target language, and there will be always be semantic gaps. And the paper has conducted an exploration into the lexical gap and translation, and the relation between lexical gap and morphological analysis is also discussed. It is observed that the lexicalization of the same concept in another language constitute translation problems and difficulties, and the scope of the problems could be varied depending on whether the two languages concerned are culturally or linguistically related or not. So these are the abbreviations that I have used in making this paper and references, and here I conclude my presentation. Thank you, ma'am.